Labor's support for this legislation shouldn't be taken as an endorsement of the Liberals' childcare fee policy. It is not. It's a missed opportunity. As I said, it's a missed opportunity in terms of the economic recovery, a missed opportunity to support families with kids in early learning. And our policy, Labor's policy, is clearly more beneficial to more families and more children in care. It's better because we genuinely believe in the benefits of early learning. We believe in the benefits for productivity for our economy. We haven't, like the Liberals, been dragged kicking and screaming to a sensible position on fees. We value early learning, we value the children in it, we value the families who rely on it, and we value the workforce which delivers it. And despite promising a once-in-a-generation reform of early learning, we have seen consistent fee increases under the coalition government, indeed a 36% increase since 2013. Childcare costs have been growing at approximately double CPI over the past quarter, and the government predicts these costs to grow by a further 4.7% in the next 4 years. And why does this matter? Beyond cost of living concerns, it matters because childcare and early learning is beneficial for children in it. It's beneficial for many families who rely on it. It's beneficial for productivity. It's beneficial for our economy. Now, the policy which underpins this legislation was announced to great fanfare earlier this year. And while the fee relief is welcome, of course it is, and that's why we'll support this bill, let's be clear about who misses out under the Liberals' policy. Because we know there are more than 700,000 families who will receive no lift at all. Indeed, under this policy, every single Australian family with one child aged 5 or under in care with a combined family income of less than $530,000 a year will not receive any lift in benefit. Any extra support the Liberals' policy provides to families with 2 children in childcare will be ripped away once the family's oldest child goes to school. What's more, it doesn't start until July 2022, which is absurd when we know how important and urgent fee relief is for families now. Of course, there is another way. There is Labor's policy, which the government could adopt. Labor's policy, which does not discriminate based on the size of a family, which has no age cut-off and applies to all children using outside school hours care during primary school. Our policy, which will boost support for every child whilst they're in childcare and will leave 1 million Australian families better off. Push your pride aside and sign up to it. It's good policy. It's good policy if you genuinely believe to the importance of fee reform and fee relief. But of course, that's key, right? You've got to genuinely believe in it. You've got to genuinely believe in the sector which this legislation seeks to assist, the sector which holds the key to greater productivity, greater economic benefits, and of course, greater social benefits from improving access to early learning. Because every time we invest in early learning in Australia, we're not just investing in social reform, we're investing in productivity, we're investing in economic growth. That's critical to remember. Labor gets it, right? We get the importance of early learning. And I stand up here and I speak about this frequently. We get it. We believe the science. We've just had a far-ranging discussion on science in this place. Let's talk about the science of early learning. We know in those first 1,000 days of a child's life, critical brain connections are formed. And if those brain connections aren't formed, there can be dire consequences for the children involved. And they're formed through some of the most simple and pleasurable things for a child: counting fingers and toes, singing songs, telling nursery rhymes. These sorts of actions which help a child develop. And for some children, the place they get that interaction, they get that stimulation, they have that opportunity for those connections to form is in an early learning setting. And for particularly vulnerable children, that can be the only place where those brain connections have the opportunity to come alive. That's why it's so important, for vulnerable kids especially. And that's why our early educators are absolutely doing life-changing work every single day. Life-changing work for the children in our community who stand to benefit the most from the work they do and the support they provide. So fee relief is absolutely an economic reform, an economic measure, a productivity measure, but it is also one of the greatest things we can do socially in terms of enabling children, and particularly those children who may not get a chance to go to an early learning setting if fee relief isn't provided, giving those children that opportunity to attend, to have those brain connections form, to have that stimulation, that care, that support, which is provided in an early learning centre. It's a way of ensuring children get that opportunity for the basic fundamentals of their early learning and development. That's what should guide our approach to early learning and early education in this place. Of course, it's been put at risk from the pandemic. We have seen the pandemic shut some children out of their early learning centre, shut them out of that connection with their educators, shut them out from that potential to have those connections formed. We've seen our early learning educators under extraordinary pressure in trying to deliver the life-changing and critical work that they provide for children. We've seen them ignored, we've seen them let down. We've seen their calls for help go unanswered at the beginning of the pandemic when they were saying, where's the PPE? When I wipe a child's nose, where's my PPE? When they were performing the essential work, not just in terms of the work they were providing for children in their care, but the essential work they did, which meant our essential workers in other industries could go and do their jobs. The children they were caring for, whose parents were on the front line of this pandemic, who couldn't do that work, who couldn't staff the hospitals, who couldn't be in our aged care centres, who couldn't provide caring roles or policing roles, or even indeed political roles, if it weren't for the incredible early learning workforce which was standing there behind them and supporting them. And it's those workers, those educators, who were let down so severely during this pandemic by the government. And now we're looking at a policy which is, to a great extent, about access, because fees, costs, determines access for many, many families. And when you don't get that right, you don't give as many children the opportunity to attend an early learning centre. And for many children, if they don't attend that early learning centre, they will miss out on so much. Now, conversations about early learning in this place can be controversial. It is beyond me why. Because this isn't about pitting families against each other. It isn't about your choices as a parent. It's about ensuring that all those children in our community who stand to benefit from access to an early learning centre, from access to our dedicated childcare workforce, and all the opportunities in terms of their development that can bring, have the opportunity to do that. That's what fee relief really is about. And it's about ensuring that all those parents who stand ready to make a contribution to our economy, to our society, to our community, aren't prevented from doing so because they can't afford hours and time in early learning and hours in time in childcare. It's absolutely critical on the economics, in terms of its social reform, in terms of productivity, and of course for our children, for the kids in Australia who stand to benefit from it. So, whilst I stand here as part of the Labor team, yes, supporting the legislation, we wish it went further, we wish it did better, and we wish it provided that recognition, that critical recognition that it should, for the value of early learning, the value of childcare, the opportunity attending care can bring to so many children. And I wish that in earnest it did more, it went further, it did better, because there is so much more we can do to support the early learning and development of children in Australia. There is so much more we can do to show that we value our early learning educators, not just in what we say about them and how we thank them, but in how we pay them, how we respect them, how we treat their work, how we prioritise them as the essential workers they are. There is a huge road ahead in getting early learning policy right in Australia and getting childcare policy right in Australia. This was an opportunity to do so much more. Put your pride aside, follow Labor's policy, and perhaps think creatively about the way our investments in this sector, the way our investments in early learning could be truly transformative for our economy, for productivity, for families, for children in early learning, and for our society as a whole. That would be a truly visionary thing to come out of this place. A truly reforming thing, worthy of that word, worthy of the word reform. But in saying that, we do support the legislation. We support any effort to provide fee assistance to families. I'm happy to do that, but I will be fighting in here every single day to make sure that we are always striving to go further, always striving to deliver more, to value the sector, to value the children in early learning, to value the families who are using it, to value it for its contribution to Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Smith. Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Chair. I rise to